Hey everybody, Sean here. Today I'm back in Portsmouth Village and we're going to take a little walk around the south side of Portsmouth Village. Now, despite the fact that it is a relatively small neighborhood in Kingston, it does have its own little distinctive regions within itself. So just thought I'd take a look at that today. It's a beautiful 22 degrees out, sunny as you can see. And it is Thursday, August the 22nd. It's about noon. Okay, ramblers, let's get rambling. Now, to start off things today, we're going to do a little bit of jaywalking, should the opportunity arise. Or I suppose I could just go up and go down there to the light, but that's not really where I want to start. So as you can see, we've got the Kingston Penitentiary there in the background. And right over here, we're going to take our opportunity to get across here as quick as we can. As we approach what was formerly known as Portsmouth Village's Town Hall. Built in 1865 to be a center of the municipality that had sprung up around the prison, which I just showed you over here, and the Rockwood Asylum, which is not visible to us at the moment, but is sort of beyond those homes over that way. I don't think we'll quite get to the Rockwood Asylum today, but we will definitely visit at one point. As you can see, this is a pretty handsome pile of rocks as well. I can't recall what these are referred to as, these metal features. They actually pass through the building and come out the other side, and it's effectively squeezes the building together, or rather keeps it from falling outwards. I always thought that was kind of an interesting architectural feature, and you'll see that around Kingston quite a bit, owing to the period of most of these buildings. There's a few more of them there. It's a fairly well preserved building. For most of my life, it has been either empty or much further back, I suppose, maybe in the 80s, right up into the 90s, it served as a St. John's ambulance station. So there was always an ambulance parked right beside this place. I have had a chance to go inside in the last few years, though it is locked right now. It's mostly a shell at this point. There's not a lot inside of there, but it's a long ways from derelict, so perhaps somebody will come along and breathe some new life into it. Anyway, let's take a stroll up this way. The building was constructed on this public park, which itself was constructed. You may notice it's quite lie-lowing compared to the street right here. This is King Street West, with the Olympic Harbor on just the other side of it. The reason for that low-lying characteristic is that this was actually part of the bay that comprises the harbor at one point, and it was filled in. My understanding was a bridge was created along here. This section of King Street was at one point a bridge over said water, but anyway, they filled in all of this space to create some public commons and a pretty idyllic spot for the town hall. Beautiful view of what was once known as Hatter's Bay. Anyway, we're going to move away from King Street here, as it can be a little bit noisy. the more serene corner of this park. This neighborhood has some particularly beautiful homes that are unique amongst Kingston's architecture. Just don't see a lot of structures that are quite like this throughout the rest of town. Now, a lot of these have been updated over the years. Some have, actually quite a few have got heritage protections. But that sort of thing didn't necessarily fall in place immediately once the town became incorporated as part of Kingston, which happened in 1956. I guess not incorporated, but they became a part of Kingston. I'm not going to head right up this street, but I do want to take a look at 1 Kennedy here. I had the good fortune to be a guest in this house at one point back in the 90s. My room was actually that bank of windows across the top there. It was really quite beautiful. I would imagine that any of the older homes located right here along these commons would have been some high-end real estate when they were built. They certainly are now. But that's just most of Kingston, really. But stately homes, most likely occupied by people who were integral to the community. It's the back end of Town Hall there. See a newly installed copper roof on the front porch of that home. That's a common feature in Kingston. If we come back in 2 years, that will be sort of a daub green. Is that the right word? Sort of a army green. Patina process eventually brings everything to that state. We're just going to head up Yonge Street here. As I say, today's walk is going to take us around more or less the environs of what I would call South Portsmouth. And I'm going to arbitrarily call that border at Union Street, which is this intersection that we're approaching now. As you can see, homes are character rich here in Portsmouth. Portsmouth, as I say, was founded essentially as a community to staff the 2 large facilities, being the Kingston Penitentiary and the Rockwood Asylum for the for the insane, I should say. Which of course is a title that most mental health institutions wouldn't adopt these days. But those were the times. Now, though that's how the village began, it really came into its own stride as a shipbuilding community and included plenty of mills to service that. I'm just going to stop here for a slight personal reason. This greenhouse right in front of us here is where my grandmother used to live. When I was a child, I spent quite a bit of time in that house. There was actually a stream that ran through the backyard under this street here, which is Union Street, and then ran through the neighborhood there and down into the bay. But like most urban streams, that's long gone. Something that's fun about this neighborhood is that because it was a village, it's not laid out in a typical grid pattern. It's a little hillier than the rest of Kingston is typically as well, which also makes it quite interesting. People tend to take good care of their homes here. As they say, there's lots of pride in the community. So you get little fun intersections like this all throughout the village. Something that wouldn't happen with modern planning. As I say, there is plenty of Portsmouth up this way. Lots to see. However, we're going to limit today's stroll to the south side. Another interesting little three-way intersection with a beautiful little treed area in the center. Any other part of town that'd be built over and something would be standing on it, but not in the village. Beautifully restored timber frame there. There's a few of them on this street actually. We're going to tuck down here. Oh, maybe we'll give a little press to this good cause. Anybody seen cedar? Don't hesitate to call. It's always sad. Almost got hit by a good soul here who was kind enough not to run me over. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a Sphinx cat in this window. Naked kitties. Hi, pussycat. You're strange looking, but you're probably very nice. Pretty sure that even some of the outbuildings here have heritage designation and requires extra care when renovating. I know that a lot of homeowners might find those sort of restrictions onerous, but I mean, there's a trade-off between convenience and being able to enjoy a piece of the past that's so well preserved like this. You can easily just walk right by and not notice some of these limestone gems tucked in. They're not necessarily small either. I mean, this guy right here presumably would have been home to someone with a fair bit of money in its time. And there's a good chance that's the case today too. We're more interested in the history, I suppose.
Help? Are you okay? You need help? Oh, there's a gas tank there. That's not my car. Oh, I see. I need help with.
Life has retained its village feel to some extent here in Portsmouth. So now here as we approach the intersection of Yonge and King Street West, we're going to take a right-hand turn and we'll find ourselves on what constitutes Portsmouth's commercial strip. Anchored here at one end by Peter's Drugs, It's been around since 1930. I've been in there plenty of times myself. It's one of those drugstores that's a little more than a drugstore. It's sort of community focal point. Now there was a time when there were quite a few more businesses here. They're all on the left-hand side, the commercial spaces. Some of them are realtors' offices now. I think there's a spa in there. And you know, there's a Chinese restaurant coming up, Subway, convenience store, that sort of thing. I feel like the potential for the disused commercial strip here in Portsmouth is yet to see its full potential realized. I think somebody's going to come along with a few flashy ideas, and before you know it, you'll have a bit more of a concentrated entertainment district in here. It is what Kingston does well. We do bars and restaurants like nobody's business. Now, right here is the Portsmouth Orange Hall. It's built in 1878. Now, I don't really have a ton of information at my fingertips about the original history of the building, but I do know that by the time the 50s rolled around, when my father lived here, that was the site of regular weekly dances, that kind of thing, community gatherings. As I say, some retail space that's slowly being refilled. Some sort of market there. Not really sure exactly, but we're not going to pop in today. Some empty retail space there. Just waiting for the right cafe. And housed in this beautiful old limestone building is Kai's Delight, Chinese restaurant of some note. And of course, as I move along, I've got my back turned to some of these more interesting, tiny but beautiful homes. Probably enjoyed a quieter existence before the 21st century came along. Here we got a little sushi restaurant, convenience store. There's a Subway restaurant there. Along with proximity to Queen's University's West Campus, Portsmouth is also quite close to the campus of St. Lawrence College, which is just up the road this way. So at noontime, what commercial businesses are here do actually see quite a bit of activity. And of course, it's not a small Canadian village without a Tim Hortons. And we'll just wait for this light here. And I believe we're going to go for it now. So we'll head back into More residential area. Now, once a year, and I'm going to find out when and come back, we'll do a video of it, but once a year, this community hosts a neighborhood-wide garage sale, which is just kind of delightful to be a part of. Everybody seems to do what they can to find new stuff each year to get rid of. I suspect it's just to be a part of what's turned out to be kind of a wonderful annual event here. Now, as we sort of get into more quiet areas, you get a real sense of why people want to live in Portsmouth Village here, Kingston, Ontario. So up ahead here, we're going to come to an intersection. We can see cars passing by, perhaps. That's the entrance to the Portsmouth Olympic Harbor. A lot of the homes here have a vaguely nautical feel to them. I guess that stands to reason. Being as close as they are to the water and having a history of shipbuilding in the area. You know, even some of the newer homes that are wedged in between the heritage buildings are just in the most beautiful spots. I mean, look at this right here. We have a hidden, what looks like to be maybe 1960s, 70s build, a side-by-side duplex. Not necessarily the prettiest piece of architecture, but man, what a location. Just couldn't do any better. Some new builds there. Can't do without those. 2025. Now we're rearing up on one of the more interesting parts of Portsmouth Village here. What we see right in front of us is an artisanal bakery called Wheat Kings. Relatively new addition to the village, occupying the back end of Kingston's oldest and most storied pub. Currently known as the Portsmouth Tavern, has been known as that for quite a while. It's originally opened by a fellow named Beaupre, known as Beaupre's Tavern. This bad boy dates from 1860. This is older than the town hall. You can imagine, after building a prison, which you see right there, you're going to need a place for prison guards to drink, which is right there. It's even referred to by the guards over the years as the fifth tower the tavern was. So there are 4 towers on the prison proper, and this being the 5th. At one point, that bakery that we saw at the back in Wheat Kings was still a part of the tavern proper and was a separate room reserved for uniformed guards, because they were not allowed to be seen drinking in uniform, and apparently nothing was going to stop them from drinking in uniform. So the proprietor found a solution. Regular folks up here, drunk prison guards here. Got another stretch of fairly regal old homes. Again, I suppose that comes along with proximity to a waterfront view, which we of course have right here. Although the water's not quite as apparent. Still a racing regatta going on here in the using this park as a setup zone. Let's get ourselves some shade. 22 degrees isn't oppressive, but it's not necessarily comfortable in the raw sun either. There's nowhere quite in town quite like Portsmouth Village for a little quiet. That's stunning. Timber frame there. Wood frame, I guess, I should say. And matched by a somewhat less stunning, but handsome in its own modest way. Little bungalow number there. Almost not sure which way to point the camera. You get so many interesting old places, so densely packed together. Make our way up onto Mowat here. Mowat Avenue, that is. As I say, these homes here, they back onto a fairly large park complex, which also houses the Rockwood Asylum, later known as Penrose Asylum, the mental institution. And as I say, we won't quite get that far today, but we will on a subsequent walk. And it's pretty stunning in there. Quite beautiful. As you can see, a fairly incongruous apartment tower right at the end of the street that has waterfront view. You may be able to see a bit of that water down there. I've actually been in that building. It's a little hideous from the outside, but kind of nice on the inside. But that's the point of those buildings, I suppose. As long as you don't have to look at them, they're wonderful. Doesn't get much more rustic than that, does it? Beautiful place. Handful to manage, I would think. So as we come to this particular intersection, which again, wonderfully is not at a 90-degree angle, we're entering into an area of relatively new development. This whole street here is all condos that have been built in the last 20 years. They stand on the property that was formerly occupied by one of Kingston's more notorious bars, which is interesting to say now that I think about it, because I just said that about the Portsmouth Tavern. But the Lakeview Manor was the name of this place, and it was quite the going concern in its day. It closed in the 80s. I remember I was in high school, and I believe it stood roughly right about where we are now. It was a huge mansion pointing over this way towards the water, and for a period of time it was painted in rainbow colors long before that had any sort of significance politically. And interestingly enough, the Lakeview Manor was the location where the Tragically Hip filmed their first ever music video. They made a habit of playing that venue, as did lots of musicians in that era. So kind of fitting that their first outing for the rest of the world to see was in such a very Kingston place. So here we are approaching Lake Ontario and Portsmouth Atlantic Harbour to our left. I don't know if you guys caught my video about the harbour there the other day. If not, you have some interest, go check it out. I saw a loon, talked about a duck, and saw somebody fall in the water. Crazy stuff. I just wanted to take a look at this home here. I've always found this particularly interesting. I feel like this might have been a small distillery or a brewery at one point. That tower up top. That feature, I can't recall what it was for, but I see it in most old distilleries. So I'm gonna have to do a little research so I don't sound like such a boob walking around here going, I wonder what that is. Please subscribe. In its day, Portsmouth had quite a few breweries, as I understand it, along with tons of independents. Both Labatt and Molson also had breweries here. No small village is complete without its own tiny beach. Now, as I say, and as we've seen, Portsmouth does have quite a bit of beautiful old architecture, but you know, some of this new stuff isn't bad either. This is a pretty unique condominium building here in Kingston. 60s, 70s era. I think it's the only building of its kind in town that's crescent shaped. And it hits right on the water. The pool lacks a certain amount of privacy because we are on a public walkway here, so you know, you're going to have company if you use the pool. Nonetheless, you've got a pool and a lakefront view and a crescent-shaped building. What more could a person want? I don't know if you guys can see out there in the distance, a little regatta happening. I mentioned that the other day in the harbor video. I feel it might be cork, but again, I haven't done my research, so I apologize. And of course, the ever-present windmills of Wolf Island. Now, I'm told there was a racetrack right down here at some point in Portsmouth's history. I didn't have time to do that research either today, but I'd be very curious to know more about that. Coming up on a little footbridge here that facilitates the Waterfront Trail here in Kingston. Leads from downtown all the way out to what's known as Lake Ontario Park, a little further west, which is actually far enough that it used to be outside of the city boundaries even in my day. Another access point from the neighborhood to reach this waterfront walkway. And residents of this building here, along with their pool, have a little kayak launch. Something like that. Way to get in the water here. Oh, there's cedar again. We'll keep our eyes peeled for cedar. So I think we'll call it there, guys. Thanks for coming along with me today. We will take a look at a little bit more of Portsmouth and the surrounding environs in subsequent videos. I just wanted to keep this one simple today. And given that there's actually quite a bit to see here in Portsmouth, I didn't want to rush it. But in any event, I hope you had a good time, and if you like what you see here, please think about subscribing. If you've got any information that might help me fill in some of my gaps in history, please let me know about that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.